Jeff, appreciate you hopping on today. I put out a post, I don't know, 2 months ago just about disc golf. And it was fascinating diving into some of the numbers, and then naturally the beauty of putting out stuff, especially on LinkedIn or whatever, from my side is start to attract some of the people in that know the space a little bit better. And disc golf is certainly one of those, and you're building something cool. So excited to dive into that today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to talk about the tour and the sport at large.
So give us the rundown. Who is Jeff Spring? And what are you building in the sports ecosystem, especially on the disc golf side?
Yeah, I'm the CEO and tour director of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and we're basically building the PGA of disc golf. And it's been a long road. Disc golf's been around since the 70s, and been doing pro world championships since 1982. That grew into kind of a real pro scene in the 90s, and a national tour in the 2000s. The Disc Golf Pro Tour, our organization, launched in 2016. I was one of the founding tournament directors. And in 2019, when it was recapitalized by our current owner, I became the CEO. And now we've kind of grown our own OTT subscriber platform for live coverage. We've got over 50,000 subscribers. That subscriber base is growing quickly. So we're, both the media company and the league. And, we're doing 30 to 40 events, including the majors, the big four, just like golf, and the tour events like the PGA, all across North America and Europe. So it's been, since 2019, when I became CEO, it's been a crazy ramp as it boomed during the pandemic. And, we're growing crazy, in all sectors. So the emerging sports world is wild.
It is wild. And you have the 4 tentpole events or the majors, what are some of the locations on these? Like, I guess for this one, we have to probably even get a little more specific on things just because a lot of people are probably unfamiliar, at least from our audience, of a lot of this stuff.
For sure. The 4 are the PDGA majors. So the PDGA is similar to kind of the USGA for disc golf, where they're the governing body. They keep the rules, the standards. They, have all the equipment standards. So how a disc golf basket is, allowed to be manufactured, how the discs are allowed to be manufactured. But they also award the majors. And we, as the official pro tour, the PDGA, have the media rights to those, broadcast those. It's similar to golf in that some stay the same and some move around. The biggest event in the world is the Pro World Championship, and that's bidded out. Next year, it's actually in just north of Helsinki, Finland, in Tampere. First time it's going over to Europe. It was in Lynchburg, Virginia, and then it was in Smugglers, Vermont, the 2 preceding years, but it does move around. One of the next one is the U.S. Disc Golf Championship, kind of like the U.S. Open, but that is like the Masters of disc golf. It stays in one spot just south of Charlotte, North Carolina, and Rock Hill. The Champions Cup is one that gets bidded around, has a home base at the PDGA International Disc Golf Center in Appling, Georgia, right near Augusta. But that does move around. And then the European Open is typically in Finland, but it will move around Europe a little bit. And next year it's in Estonia, which is a big disc golf country, actually.
Yeah, I was about to say that I was just pulling up some stats as you were talking and relating to the old post, but it's 87 countries have disc golf courses.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
15,000 courses worldwide. Mm-hmm. And then Finland, there's actually way more disc golf courses than golf courses, 6 to 1 it's saying. What are you seeing from the whole of this growth? I know you had mentioned over the last couple of years we're seeing a lot, but any other factors other than just everyone sort of being outside or being inside and looking for social activity outside?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was growing before the pandemic. I kind of frame it as the golf of a new generation or the next generation. And the factors there are, accessibility. Almost 90% of the courses are free. There's a growth in pay-to-play courses, which is great for us. We usually go to pay-to-play venues, some of the best venues in the sport, in order to, kind of put on these big stage pro tour events. But, it's also, so it's cheap. It's easy to find. As you mentioned, they're all over the place. There's more disc golf courses in the U.S. than Dunkin' Donuts. There's over 10,000. And that line is creeping up to as many golf courses there are. In 10 years, we could look around and say there's as many disc golf courses. So it's also a little bit more aligned with, folks that like to get outdoors and, kind of experience the environment. It's a little bit more environmentally friendly. There's not a lot of land use impact. In terms of building a golf course, it's really, you need a lot of land and a lot of resources. For disc golf, usually you're partnering with municipalities, private landowners. It's more like a light hike in the woods. It's also about half the time. If you're going to play casually, it could be 90 minutes, 2 hours. The community usually gives you a disc if you come out and say, hey, I want to get going. So it's really easy to get going for really cheap. And then, easy to get hooked. People really enjoy, spending time in nature, getting outside and playing with a friend. So instead of spending, 10, 20K on your country club membership, a lot of folks are getting their crew together and going out to the disc golf course and, bring your kids, bring your dog, bring your own beer. And it's kind of fits a little bit more with the lifestyle of, the modern golfer maybe. So.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating to watch. I played for the first time a couple of years ago, and I enjoyed it. You throw frisbee here and there when you're younger, and if you don't end up playing ultimate frisbee or disc golf, it's not an everyday thing, right? It's not as around. And I'm curious from a demographic or age standpoint, if you have any stats or data around that of what it's sort of looking like as a whole from the sport. It seems like it's pushing younger based off, what you were saying just previously.
Yeah, I mean, the growth in youth is huge. If you go to Finland, it seems like there's kids everywhere at the European Open. At that event, there's over, I think there's 5,500 spectators at that event this year. They're projecting they might get 10K next year, and tons of kids everywhere. The huge fans of all the athletes, screaming, yelling, wanting their autographs. So the youth sport side of things is blowing up. Our main demographic is 18 to 45, and that's, for our partners, kind of hard to reach. Why, they look to live sports. And so a lot of our partners love that demographic for us. But the women's game is growing. We're proud. We've got about 150 tour card holders, just like the PGA Tour similarly has tour card holders. And we've got a huge set of PO or female pro open players that have grown fans across the world. I mean, the women's sport is blown up, and there's tons of little girls playing now too. We work with an organization called Throw Pink. So the demo is also great though for the older side. It really is a lifelong sport similar to golf, and you've got people playing well into their 70s, 80s, especially on low impact courses, easy to get around. So it's really a lifetime sport for everybody.
Yeah, and what from a scoring, like maybe we maybe should have touched on a little bit earlier, but same as golf, similar 18-hole courses, 9-hole, or they're par 3s, 5s. What does the whole scoring look like? What's the actual gameplay?
If you know golf, disc golf, as I like to say. So, just like traditional golf, it's got pars 3s, 4s, and 5s. Usually the pars are a little shorter. So a lot of, public courses are par 3. They may be par 54 for 18 holes. We tend to play on tracks that are between par 61 and, 68, 69. Sometimes you'll see one that gets up towards the traditional golf par of like 70, 71, 72. But, probably average 65. So, if a par 5 is a little less common, definitely par 4s are a part of the sport. And, you have putters, mid-ranges, fairway drivers and drivers. Pros carry, there's no limit. So pros carry usually 18 to 24 discs. And even most amateurs, when they get into it, they carry that many. You've got tees, fairways, and greens. And, it's really a 1-to-1, but just usually the challenges in the air. So bushes, trees, obstacles to turn the disc and shape the disc around, because you're not hitting it off the ground. So it makes it a little bit easier because you really don't need to maintain the ground like they do on a golf course, because that's really just for footing. So the challenge is in the air, and the target is a basket that has evolved through the years into its current form. So
yeah, and what's the difference between, say you have 18 different discs? Like what are the differences? Like, just some go farther, some are more rounded, spin more?
Yeah. It's basically a Frisbee. Take that and, reduce it by about 2/3 the size, and that's basically the circumference of a disc. It's around 11 inches, and they weigh about the same. The weights are anywhere between 150 and 180 grams, and most pros are on the heavier side. But putters are a little bit like mini frisbees, but with all discs, a lot of the weight is out towards the rim, which makes them more stable, which means you can spin them with more centrifugal force. You can throw them at a faster speed and they don't just flip over. It's kind of like a professional tool versus the frisbee being a game for catch. The drivers, beveled edge, they cut through the air and have a lot of the weight on the rim, which means pros can throw them accurately up to 600 feet, which is really impressive to watch. And in fact, it's totally a different sport. If you want to go on YouTube, if any of your listeners want to just check it out, you can just look up Disc Golf Pro Tour. We also own and operate a YouTube channel called Jomas Pro that almost has 500,000 subscribers. And you'll be amazed. These are pro athletes. They're dedicating their lives to the game year round. They've got trainers, managers, agents. The biggest disc golf contracts are, 7 figures. We got several of the top pros getting those from their manufacturing teams. So big part of the industry is those manufacturers, Innova, Discraft, MVP, so on and so forth. They sign players to throw their discs, and then sales really drive the industry in a lot of ways. So people are always buying discs. It's like an easier purchase than a set of clubs. You want to get a new putter, new mid-range, a new disc comes out, $20, all of a sudden you've got 300 discs in your basement and you're playing every weekend.
Yeah, then you're paying the same amount for how long do they last? Do they have pretty good durability, or it's more so you just like a bunch of different variations of discs?
Yeah, that's kind of part of it too, is that you've got base plastic and then higher end plastic. Different companies call those different plastics different things, but the higher end, you could have a disc for 20 years. And so some pros, may be throwing the same disc for 10 years. They really don't want to lose that disc. They know exactly how it flies, because as a disc is played with and gets wear, maybe hits a couple trees, it does break in and become less stable. So some pros can kind of flip a disc up from one angle to flat and have it ride. That usually comes with knowing your disc really well, getting it seasoned in. So that's a whole element. Certainly. The disc is kind of like the centerpiece, very beloved to disc golfers in a different way than a golf ball is. I think it's like the ball and the club together.
Yeah, and you probably lose far fewer discs than you do golf balls, or at least for me, I don't know. So
yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, if you can't find a golf ball after a minute or two, maybe you move on, but you might be searching for a disc for a while. If
exactly.
You lose it. Hopefully they are harder to lose, but it happens. You spend some time looking for your favorite disc once in a while.
I can imagine. And then you have designs and stuff on them, I'm assuming, and people get pretty funky with them.
I mean, the pro, that drives a lot of pro revenue, actually. They come out with pro models, and you want to get, this specific disc. Simon Lizotte, Eagle McMahon, Paul Macbeth, Kristen Tatar. These are people with high sales, and that drives the value for the manufacturers to say, hey, putting this person on our team is going to impact our disc sales tremendously. And then there's commemorative stamps for events. We do a lot of that. But it is, a lot of people have wall discs where there's beautiful art on disc and they just put them on their wall. So it's the collector's market's kind of crazy. It's definitely blown up, but there's discs sold probably every week for, couple $1,000 per disc. I've seen there's marketplaces for that.
Oh well, yeah. And tell us about I know we touched on it briefly at the beginning, but the actual tour, right? And what you guys are building, and where it's at today, and even the growth. I'm sure with the more participation numbers, it's increased interest on your media side, having more potential players that could join the tour. What is the state of? Are you saying DGPT? Is that do you formalize it, or do you just usually say Disc Golf Pro Tour?
Both, yeah. DGPT is easier, probably a little quicker, but yeah, the tour, like I said, we're the official tour, the highest level of the PDGA. They do have amateur events. If you want to become a PDGA member and you're interested in competing, you can get in at a C tier, then B tier, A tier, and then you can work your way up. Right now, to play on the tour, you got to be a tour card member or qualify or get an exemption. So you can't just walk out and join an event. You got to long process, but that's okay. For us, we're really focused on site and online. And so we've seen growth in both tremendously over the past 5 years, actually since inception, really in 2016. Next year's our 10th year. We're pushing, our biggest events are pulling up to 5,000 people on site, which is important. As any, pro sport would tell you, ticket sales, fan experience is really important. We want to keep people coming back out. So one important thing for us is working with a lot of the CVBs, DMOs, and municipalities to partner with them, because we've gotten attention from them. They've said, hey, how do we get the Disc Golf Pro Tour here? Or how do we get you to come back? How can we support the growth of your event? So that's a big focus for us. Online, we have, I mentioned Jomez Pro and the Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube channels. We try to put as much free content out. Jomez Pro does, like every shot next day coverage, where they turn and then produce it kind of like a podcast with some of your favorite personalities, some of the pros commentating on that. So that's free. You can watch, next day competitive content, for every single one of our events. And those followings are growing, together are almost at, trying to push above 1 million, YouTube subscribers. But Disc Golf Network is certainly a key for us as, live subscriber OTT platform. We partnered with AWS to transition to a new platform, and they've been a key partner in developing, kind of score stats technology along with the PDGA. So we want to just improve the product, get it out to more people. We basically see it as disc golf grows. That's top of funnel for us. We want more people aware, just trying out disc golf. And then as that funnel continues to grow, we work them down. You may play in your first event, or you just may get started playing. Just like football or any sport, we're also developing fans that don't play. Not everybody plays football, but they have a huge audience. So we found that there are people that watch pro disc golf and follow their favorite players that don't actually play as well. And so there's a lot of different paths to growth, but, we've seen, basically as the sport grows, those two channels for us, on-site and online, grow and allow us to do more. And venue development is an area that we want to invest in. Not a lot of venues are able to host more than 5,000 people. We're kind of growing out of this phase where it's the grassroots volunteerism has built a lot of the facilities. But now we're moving into, people seeing, hey, this audience is big. I can invest in a venue. I can spend some private equity to invest in the tour, invest in the future of what disc golf's going to be. And that's kind of where we're at in terms of our growth.
Very cool. Yeah. Online and on site and offline. That's the two you phrase. So like, if you look at that in terms of another league, you're essentially saying like a media rights and then ticket sales for the most part.
Yeah. Those are certainly our core. Now we have, a lot of merch, retail. Those sales are huge, but on-site and online drives the other big revenue source, which is advertising partnership sales. So we've got a lot of great partners. We brought on LL Bean for the World Championship last year. They've been supporting our playoffs and our Tour Championship. Barbasol is the presenting sponsor of our DGPT championship, which is very similar to the FedEx Cup, where there's 2 playoff events. You qualify for the championship, and that's the biggest payout of the year. And overall, like, we want to make it more sustainable for this group of touring pros. There's kind of, I talked about top of funnel for fans. There's also a funnel for kids, to get into playing disc golf with. There's an educational disc golf experience called Edge. You play disc golf. They're in schools developing it, working on a high school program. And then there's college disc golf and college national championships. And that's kind of your way to our qualifying series. Then you become a pro. And so there's a funnel there as well. But we want to support those pros. I think 2016, when the tour launched, there was only probably 30 or 40 touring pros trying to put their schedule together. What we're able to do now is provide benefits, curate their tour, publicize via PR, and telling people about the sport and the tour to make it sustainable. So we operate in just that mission to basically provide and translate the story on the the biggest stages and venues of the best players in the world to the fan base in order to help grow it.
Yeah, the natural next question, how many pros today? If you said it was 30, 40 to start, what are you looking at? And then also where are some of the better players coming from? Is it the US? Is it like in Estonia and Finland? Or what's
Yeah.
that look like?
Well, we award at the end of the season 5 tour cards to the women's division and 90 tour cards to the men's division. Then we give 6 to the qualifying series. We have a qualifying series championship coming up in Florida in a couple weeks. And then we'll do some tour card exemptions for those players that maybe had an injury, that are on the bubble. So we end up with, about 150, maybe a little more. It's not like a cap number. Players are coming from all over. In fact, like there's been a wave of European ascent in some of the competitors. We just had the first Finnish world champion, and that was only the second European world champion on the women's side. I don't think there's never been a men's world champion from outside the United States. So most of the talent traditionally has been in the U.S. The sport was founded Huntington Beach, California, and it's kind of spread out from there. Hotspots around the country for players, include SoCal, Portland, Oregon, Nashville, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Rust Belt, like Michigan, even Illinois, Peoria, Illinois, and then the Northeast is blowing up. But if you go outside, a lot of our top players are coming from Estonia and Finland. We've got some great Norwegian players, a couple Swedish players. There's been some great players from Denmark. And it's funny. We started in like SoCal because it's like warm and good for golf, like back, when the sport started. But I think it's because of the land use and the amount of land that, kind of the Baltic area has. It's kind of going north to south in Europe. So it's huge. And we've got a player, Niklas Antala, who was close to the world championship this year. He's from Finland. Evelina Salonen is the current world champion. She's from Finland as well. But yeah, in the U.S., kind of all over.
Yeah, and so it doesn't really matter. It seems like cold, warm areas. It's pretty. There's no like baseball. You think of like a warm weather sport, but disc golf is seemingly both, which is interesting. Because even real golf, right? It's a warm weather sport. So
Right.
yeah, and as you're building this, I guess what are some of the biggest challenges from as the CEO, as running this league, as you're trying to expand an emerging sport that we'll still call as like niche? What are some of the roadblocks you run into, and how are you guys overcoming those?
Yeah, I think for us, there's no limit to the challenges that we have because our organization has gotten to, about 60 employees and 40 contractors, which is really kind of astounding for where disc golf's come from. But we easily could have 500 employees with the amount that we have to do and we want to do. So, if you just look at, any sports league, we could have more people managing partners and advertising relationships. We could have more people in operations, developing venues. I've got a whole list of expansion we'd like to do across all of that. But I mean, I think the main thing we're looking at is continuing technology development. We are working towards being listed for sports betting next year, working on that with our scores and stats technology team with the PDGA and, through our relationship with AWS, connecting the dots there. So we plan to be listed in some states pretty soon. And next year we should be able to see some sports betting. That's, kind of got a lot of upside and a lot of challenges, a lot of risks, but we feel like it's a good path to help popularize the sport. We know that a lot of fans, kind of get really engaged, and you can hear about sports a lot, find out about them. And if you're betting on them, obviously you probably want to watch them as well. So, we've gone down that road. And so there's obviously some technology development there, and media distribution is a big thing with growth too. We want to put disc golf, in front of people, organically, but also, just get them to turn on, whatever they're watching. Obviously, media wise, it's really diffuse. There's so many different channels. There's fast TV channels. There's all the different apps and platforms. We've distributed content with media partners like ESPN. We've had about 6 event features there. Right currently, we're in a multi-year deal with CBS Sports. We just announced 4 shows that will be airing over the course of November and into December. So you can catch Disc Golf Pro Tour content there. But we're moving our live operation forward with technology advancements too. So we hope to be able to distribute live content with other partners as well, and not just on our own app. But, the technology side is important. I think it's important for all sports. Important to, I went to the PGA Championship last year, and 5,000 people, it was really hard to load anything on your cell phone, even though they had a dedicated network. Well, that type of technology challenge is real for us too. And even with 5,000 people on site, it can affect cellular, connectivity, the fan experience online. We also have a REMI system for our live coverage distribution. So we do go through bonded cellular. So no limit in challenges and areas to grow.
Yeah, and I guess from a macro perspective, then any trends you're keeping an eye, on in sports as a whole, like maybe it pertains a little bit to disc golf, but just sports in general and all the massive transformation that seems to be taking place every day across the industry.
Yeah, we're always trying to keep our ear to the ground. I think that emerging sports are, and niche sports are growing in popularity. You can see it where, I think the WNBA just announced that they have a new league for their offseason. If you look at the European market, a lot of the niche sports and emerging sports are treated on the same pedestal as, bigger sports. I think for us, we're just trying to, kind of find pathways to, more exposure to a larger amount of sports fans, working with different partners in the actual sports industry, whether it's the PGA or pickleball, trying to understand, their successes and challenges and what trends they're seeing. Since media is such a big component of our growth and, a barometer of how we're doing, we definitely try to keep our ear to the ground on media trends. Are people cutting subscriptions or are they adding subscriptions? Where are we in our subscribers list of priorities with their own subscriptions? Obviously, post-pandemic, I think a lot of the boom for a lot of outdoor sports, like, guitar playing, I've got friends in the cycling industry as well saying, hey, some painful moments post-pandemic as people go back to their poker games or pick up basketball games and they can, kind of step away from what they've dabbled in. So I think that, we're trying to understand the trends for us. We've had rapid growth and I'm starting to see a little bit of a plateau, but even before the pandemic, disc golf was like this 15 to 20% growth sport year over year, depending on the sector of the industry. And so it looks like we're kind of merging back into that trend. But yeah, it's certainly important to understand what the sports market in general is doing, especially in terms of media consumption habits and also how to get them out on site. So those are the main trends we're trying to watch.
Love that. Yeah. And Unrivaled was the women's basketball one you were talking about. We actually just had Alex on, so you guys will be like back to back. So it's actually awesome. Pretty funny, but yeah.
Is leading that with
Alex Basil and his wife Nafisa. He's the president, and Brianna, and
awesome.
So
cool. That's very interesting, and like we're kind of thinking outside of the box because we obviously have the tour, the DGPT, the standard schedule, but we're kind of thinking, what else can we do? There is an off season. What kind of content can we provide? And that seeing that news was eye opening. I mean, the growth of women's basketball has been astounding, and we kind of see ourselves. I mean, the way I try to direct our team is like, let's focus on our output similar to tennis, where tennis, the women's game and the men's game are just the same side by side. And I think it's served us really well. And we've seen a really good reaction and a big kind of growth in women's viewership as well.
Yeah, I love that. I was going to say it's probably pretty competitive on both sides and not a huge difference, which is
right.
Which is good. As we close this out, where can people learn more, get to an event, buy tickets, watch, like where? I know we've mentioned throughout some of the spots, but give us it all in one shot of in a line.
Yeah, you can go to DGPT.com. That's our website, or any of our socials, Disc Golf Pro Tour on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. should say X. But the schedule for 2025 is out there. We're going to be, across North America and Europe. So you can probably find something pretty close to you if you want to come check it out. Tickets are pretty affordable, especially GA. We're looking at under $20 to get out and experience it. Great experiences on site, food, drink, games to play. And then of course, watching some incredible pros. So yeah, pretty easy to find us, and check us out on YouTube. If you like that content, you can always subscribe to the Disc Golf Network to watch live.
Love it.